This is a Fox News alert. 3 major U.S. airlines are now canceling their flights to and from Israel after a rocket landed near Tel Aviv's airport. You know, those rockets have been coming farther and farther into the country of Israel. And so now it's affecting international air travel. I want to make you aware of 3 things that we can confirm now. Delta and United Air are canceling their to and from flights to Tel Aviv until further notice. A little different situation for U.S. Air. They have called off a flight to and from Philadelphia and Tel Aviv today, and they are going to consider the situation on a flight or case-by-case basis. And then this. A Delta Boeing 747 from New York was flying over the Mediterranean, headed to Tel Aviv, when it turned around and flew back to Paris instead. So they are doing this even for flights that are en route. Wow. A very dangerous situation as the conflict over there in Israel between the Israeli military and the Hamas terror group heats up. We'll be covering the story, as you know, on Fox News Channel. We'll come back to it even this hour as the news warrants to keep you up to date. Sandra?
A major blow to Obamacare. A federal appeals court ruling the Affordable Care Act, as written, only allows insurance subsidies in states that set up their own exchanges. The decision striking down the IRS rule that allowed subsidies in all states. If upheld, it could mean premium increases for more than half of the 8 million Americans who are getting tax credits through the federal exchanges. Right now, the Obama administration is saying the subsidies will keep flowing despite the court decision. Now, this, of course, Kimberly, could be appealed, but yet another blow to Obamacare.
Well, yes, because this is something that's been fundamentally flawed from the beginning. The infrastructure was never really present and coherent in a way they could operate legally without significant challenge. And what we're seeing here is this is another blow to sort of like you've got a tent and you got the mandate, you know, in the center, and then you've got the other poles supporting it. And by one, those are getting chipped away, so it's starting to collapse. What they're going to have to do is decide if they want to do an en-banc review, have all of the justices sit to be able to review this decision. Yep. I expect and anticipate that that is what's going to happen next step. So this will not have an immediate operation of kind of dismantling it, but we're going to have to see. The court's not going to be able to ignore this because it's too important to the overall structure of Obamacare.
And this just really reminds me of the now infamous quote, Harris, from Nancy Pelosi. Let's just pass this thing so we can all find out what's in it.
Yeah, it also reminds me of the infamous quote, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. Right. If you like your subsidies, you can keep them. That may not be the case. We're not just talking about a few states, by the way. Of all of those with exchanges, 36 would fall under the category now where they're not legal. Yeah, that's very problematic. A lot of people signed up for Obamacare because they thought they could get these subsidies.
A lot of people will be affected by this, Pete.
Absolutely. They passed it so they could find out if it's constitutional, and this isn't the first time we've seen that. This will go to the Supreme Court. Yeah. There's no way but no big surprise here. The administration ignores the ruling of the D.C. Circuit in the meantime. I mean, this is what they've been doing with Obamacare all along, ignoring what the law actually says. This does get to maybe not the main tent, because that is the mandate, but the subsidies. It will make these exchange plans way too expensive for people who have bought them, and it hit people in their pocketbook right now.
And something we're not talking about, how much is this costing us? Now we're going through the court system. It's going to go to appeal. Nancy Pelosi, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they all said, let's pass this. Let's work out the kinks as we go along. Well, that's costing us a lot more money in our court system, and premiums are going up for these 8 million Americans.
She's right. It's reckless policy because they said, oh, we're going to pass it and then we'll read it and find out what's in it.
I just had a thought. You know, what if we started saying to lawmakers, if we pass it and find out what's in it, we don't like it, can you fix it? Can we bill you for the legal cost of fixing it?
Well, and think about just the instability, you know, the lack of certainty for Americans out there that were really counting on getting health care insurance with, you know, you can have a job, you can have whatever. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Or more important, not more importantly, but just as significantly, people who had plans, then lost them, then signed up for these because they were probably more expensive, but similar to, and now they're going to get that much more expensive. I mean, I think the White House understands how politically terrible this would be. It would bring Obamacare back into the 2014 midterms if people's premiums went skyrocketing.
This is really a consumer fraud, in my opinion, being perpetuated against the American people, because they said, take this, it's better, we've got you, we're going to support you, and now the bottom's fallen out of that. So what are people supposed to do? And how are you supposed to pay
it's not working. A friend of mine has bought into Obamacare, and she says that she gets another bill every time she goes to the doctor.
Supplemental,
and it's costing thousands of dollars.
Not to mention the number of businesses I talk to on a daily basis, Ainsley, who just reference the problems that it has caused for their hiring and their businesses to progress.
Well, and interesting, it puts it right back where the Democrat Party didn't want it to be, and that's around that midterm election. Remember, they pushed back the enrollment beyond that point. We could be talking about it now before the election. Stunning new information to tell you about now on the terror attack in Benghazi, Libya, that killed 4 Americans, including our ambassador there. Multiple sources are telling Fox News that 1 year before the hit on our U.S. consulate there, members of Ansar al-Sharia, an Islamist militia group, moved in next door. We're told the State Department was warned that they were moving in and turned down requests for machine guns on the rooftops and sandbags at the American compound to keep everybody safe. Adam Housley following this story. Adam, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, Harris, a little bit less than a year's time, but still a long period of time had taken place when the U.S. had told, people on the ground there had told the State Department that they believed members tied to Ansar al-Sharia had basically moved in next door within 3 weeks of us renting the consulate. That's the first location that was attacked that night, where Ambassador Chris Stevens was killed along with Sean Smith. Within 3 weeks of moving in, next door, groups tied directly with al-Qaeda and Ansar al-Sharia bought the house. Now, you're looking at a map right now of our mission compound. It would be just to the right of that almost square area you're seeing there in the red. In fact, it was so dangerous to the night of the attack, as our forces were leaving and retreating back to the annex, they told everyone, take a left, don't turn right, because you'll drive right in front of that house. Now, we had a chance to talk with sources with direct knowledge about what happened that night. They tell us a couple of things. First of all, they say, quote, we warned D.C. about the guys who moved in next door, but nobody knew what to do and nothing was done. Again, that was coming from someone with direct knowledge, multiple people with direct knowledge that night. We've also learned that men on the ground specifically asked for a belt-fed machine gun and sandbags, but were turned down because they weren't aesthetically pleasing. And that it would upset the neighbors. That was the quote they've given to us. Now, we asked the State Department about that yesterday in a briefing, and we were specifically told that our questions were, quote, dubious. Then today we got a statement from the State Department that says, quote, there was a request, shocking, that came in from Benghazi on August 22nd, and it was considered in Tripoli on the day of the attack. It was contained in a list of security requests, so to say that the request was rejected is inaccurate. Now, these latest revelations continue to directly question the response or lack thereof before, during, and after the attack. We're also told, guys, that next door we had an issue, of course, with the people that were protecting our agency there, our folks there from the agency as well as the State Department and also some of our contractors. That group is called the February 17th Martyrs Brigade. We actually, it was a local militia that we contracted with. We're being told by our sources, not only here stateside but also on the ground, that that militia may have actually taken part or helped take part in the attack, and the person that led that militia left Benghazi on September 12th, even as our guys were still standing on the tarmac. Harris?
Wow. You just sewed together so many things that were not connected, and now they are. Adam Housley with the report to set us up. Thank you very much. All right, so Pete, our veteran on the couch, military veteran here, you have the neighbors saying, don't protect that U.S. compound with machine guns. Well, now we know who the neighbors were. They were potential terrorists. No, of course they don't want us to protect.
Of course they don't. And I take issue with this characterization that a 240 Bravo belt-fed machine gun is not aesthetically pleasing.
I find it very sexy.
I find it very
well.
comforting and aesthetically pleasing. I mean, this is basic force protection measures you would have at a facility like this. They don't have to be open and exposed sandbags. You can usually, you don't have to have the weapon mounted at all times. Just basic precautions you could take. And we knew Ansar al-Sharia, if their next door is a terrorist organization, they showed 3 months further a big public display with 200 trucks and mounted machine guns and anti-aircraft. We knew they were heavily armed. We knew they had affiliation with Wahhabists, al-Qaeda types, and if they're living next door, you better do something about it and take the measures necessary. This is gross negligence by the State Department.
Well, and look what's rolled out since then, Ainsley. Now we're learning that this is the group that the Libyan army is trying to fight against as they're trying to take over Benghazi, like ISIS style, I guess.
Harris, why are we so worried about the neighbors? Why aren't we worried about our American men that are over there? Who cares if they're not beautiful pieces of machinery? I want our men protected, and they asked and they asked and they asked, and they did not get that. It is negligence, and this could have been preventable. And now we have to explain this. The administration needs to explain this to the parents who now sit around the Thanksgiving table, have Christmas without their loved one. Think about what that's like if you're a parent. It's supposed to be the worst thing you can ever go through.
What is the feeling in the military about this pattern of response from the administration, or lack of response, I should say, to anything but Al-Qaeda? You know, that
That's
not
exactly
acknowledging that there are these other terrorist groups.
It's a fantastic organization. That's a fantastic comment. I mean, because they focus only on core Al-Qaeda, and then everyone else, ISIS, Ansar al-Sharia, others across, well, they're just affiliates, offshoots, not really core Al-Qaeda, so they've more or less ignored the problem. And you've seen it in Libya as they try to take Benghazi back. You've seen it in ISIS, in Iraq and Syria. This is going to continue. Islamists are on the march, and this administration are being willfully blind.
Yeah, but besides this, everybody knows, anybody who spent 2 minutes studying intelligence, that Ansar al-Sharia is an AQ affiliate.
Yes.
Okay, how many times have we said that on Fox News? We all know it. So the fact of the matter is, it is not even just, to me, gross negligence, it's malfeasance, because they acted in conscious disregard of a known risk, okay, that this could likely result in death of Americans. We failed to adequately provide security despite the very serious intelligence reports showing them. You know what they gave the Libyan Guard? Stun batons.
Right.
Well,
Someone
and
needs to be held
sandbags.
accountable.
Remember that? I mean, we remember seeing those. Hillary Clinton gave an interview several months ago. She was asked about it. And, oh, you know, it's not my expertise to know how to protect the compound.
Right.
And then they had that video with Diane Sawyer, I think she sat down with, and all you saw were sandbags. We'll talk more about this as the news happens on it. For now, tensions are escalating between the White House and Texas governor over the crisis at the border. The big move now that has triggered a war of words between Republican Governor Rick Perry and the White House.